Welcome everyone to Chart's free webinar series. Today we welcome Braxton Luzier of Blaze Pizza presenting on virtual presentation skills. Thank you, Braxton, for joining us today.
Thanks, Tara. I'm super excited to be here. I think we do have to mention though one critical piece. I don't know if you guys can see my background right now if you have me on camera, but I think this is a Chart first. I am actually in the Chart headquarters doing this webinar today. Last minute, we had a work trip that got scheduled and I had to be out here in New Jersey. And I was like, Tara, I'm 2 minutes down the road. I need a quiet place to do this. And it actually worked out great. So Tara, thank you for hosting me at the Chart headquarters for our first ever webinar live from Chart HQ. Super exciting. As she said, my name is Braxton Luzier. If you don't know me, I'm the Senior Manager of Learning and Communications for Blaze Pizza. Most recently with Live Nation Entertainment. I see some of my Live Nation friends on this call today, so hello to you. Been in this Chart organization for the last 6 years. Super excited to bring you the virtual presentation skills today. I am your Chart 100 conference director in Atlanta coming up as well. So really excited to reconnect with everybody in person. And I'm a hugger, so I'm hoping this Delta variant goes away so we can have our hugs back and get to see each other again. Today, we are going to talk about those virtual presentation skills, and some of our discussion points are going to be, as you see listed here, lights, camera, action. We're going to talk about the fundamentals of getting that all set up. I'm going to go through some audience learning styles. That way we can create a presentation for our audience that really touches all of the different learning styles out there. We're going to talk about multitasking because it's such a critical topic when it comes to these virtual presentations when you're not in person. And then the engagement that we're going to talk about as well, because we need that in audience engagement to really be the focus and the center of attention to ensure that they're having really great takeaways from our presentations moving forward. And then as you saw in the description today, there's 15 hot tips. These are tips that I've put together and created from just different resources, real life experiences that I've had with virtual presentations and whatnot. So we'll go through that as well. I think virtual presentation skills, yes, we're about 1.5 years into this pandemic where everybody's working remote. And yes, some people are returning back to in-person offices. Some are still having to work remotely. So I don't foresee our virtual presentations really going away anytime soon. So now you've had this 1.5 years to kind of making the muscle memory to move forward with how you're going to present and how you can just run this whole entire show. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. It's a passion of mine. I really enjoy virtual presentations because it provides you an opportunity to not have the distractions like you would on stage, but really just be centered and focused here. And then obviously having the video interaction as well. So let's get into it. I want to kind of start off with this saying that I came up with. I was sitting in my hotel the other night and I was like, well, we really need to connect with everybody. So this is how I'm going to start it off. Do you ever feel like you're running the entire show, trying to navigate through a platform like Zoom, advancing your slides on PowerPoint, and then out of nowhere it disappears and all you can see is faces staring at you? Now you're trying to find your presentation, somewhere it got swiped up, minimize, maximize. Oh, those polls are coming in hot and heavy. Susie has her hand raised. All of a sudden you're on mute and no one can actually hear you. And then you see in the top corner that your boss, who wasn't supposed to be on the call, just joined. Your phone is now ringing and texts are coming through from your teammates asking if they can help you, but you're so beyond help. And how do you even have a second to respond? Let's not even mention the distractions from home that are happening as well. Oh, and by the way, you're still on mute. Can you relate? I do believe that you are not alone if any of these apply to you. I think that they happen more frequently than not. For example, coming here to the HQ today to do this, I'm now on a different computer that I'm not used to, and I'm supposed to be sitting here presenting to you on virtual presentation skills, and we're going to talk about the back production stuff with lighting and sound, and I don't have my ring light, I don't have my fancy microphone that some of you have seen that I use. So it's really adapting to the situations that you're in, but still having your audience stay engaged is really important. So let's get into the audio and video portion of this. So what is more important? Is it audio or video? And I would love for you guys just to throw these in the chat box right now. to the panelists, what is more important to you? Do you think the audio is more important in a virtual presentation, or do you think the video from what they are seeing? All right, so I see a lot of people are interacting here. A lot of it's coming from audio. I could not agree with you more. I still have not seen one person say video yet. So this is making me feel that we're all on the same page. Okay, so audio is more important. So let's spend a little extra time on audio. So sound completely counts when you're in a presentation. Make sure you find a quiet space with soft surfaces. I cannot reiterate soft surfaces enough. If you don't have carpet in that room, if it's all hardwood, and you have like all hard surfaces around, the sound actually bounces off of those surfaces and starts creating echoes. So if you're actually in a room that has softer surfaces, like it has a nice big comfy couch, there's a big rug, or it has carpet, those absorb the sound, so it doesn't create such echo feelings. That's why, if you're not aware, but voice actors or doing voiceovers, actually when they're doing them from home, they create their little space inside of a walk-in closet because it's all soft surfaces with all the clothes in there, and then it's usually in carpet. So that sound is actually like absorbing through those, so they get the best quality there is. When it comes to microphone, this is kind of a hot topic as well. Should you use your AirPods, your computer internal microphone? Should you get an external Yeti, which is a microphone, or are you that person that calls in with your cell phone? So pro tip on this, if you're utilizing Zoom or Teams for presenting, which I would assume most people are utilizing that, you want to mess around with your settings. So even on this Zoom call today, you can, where the mute button is, there's a little triangle button pointing down. You can click on that, click on audio settings, and you can change it. For example, for me at home, I use my Yeti mic because it helps absorb that extra echo and really gives a clear, crisp sound. And you have to make sure that you have a proper USB cable connected to that microphone into your computer. Higher quality cables actually produce better sound as well. So if you ensure that your settings are properly set up in that way, and another thing that I do is I go to the settings on Zoom, and my microphone I have set up as Yeti, but my speakers I have set up as my computer, and you can actually switch those. So if you have AirPods in and you want to use a Yeti mic, you could have the speaker set up to your AirPods, but the microphone from the Yeti. And that's just a different way. Otherwise, if you don't do it properly, then your AirPods are trying to pick up as the microphone, and we all know that can be a disaster sometimes. Otherwise, if you're unsure what to do or you're not comfortable messing around with settings, etc., just use the internal microphone. If you use an Apple product, they do a pretty great job with having proper technology in those, but you can always use that. But if you're going to use an internal mic on your computer, make sure you're in a room with soft surfaces to help with that. Let's talk about video. So when I refer to videos, there's two different types: your webcam video and then sharing a video presentation. So a video for a presentation, excuse me. So should you be using an internal camera or an external camera? This is another controversial topic in the world of virtual presentations. I would say I go back and forth. Sometimes I use an internal and sometimes I use an external. If I'm traveling on the road, obviously I'm just using my internal one. If I'm in my home office, I do have an external one just because it provides a better picture quality. And if you're ever dealing with the situation where your camera quality isn't great, that means there's not enough bandwidth with the current internet that you're using. So if you have more bandwidth in the internet, less devices are connected to it, you're actually getting a stronger signal to that. And if your modem or your internet router is actually close to your computer office setup, it's actually better to do a direct link into the modem. They call it hardwire, and that provides the best reliable internet speed for that. When you're using a camera, if it be internal or external, height, distance, and eye contact really sets the tone for how this is going to go. So, I can tilt my computer up and down right now and try to find like the best angle. And you should be doing all of this stuff prior to a call just to make sure that you're actually having the best angles. With angling the camera, nobody wants to be looking up your nose and nobody wants to be like looking down at the table or your keyboard. So you want to make sure that it's a good angle, that you can make great eye contact with the camera, but not be distracted by what you need for like your presentation presentation notes or to actually read the slides in front of you. Because if your camera's set up over here, you're constantly staring here to read and you're not even looking in the direction of the camera. And that can be super distracting for the audience. So you want to ensure that you're always somewhat talking towards the camera and making that eye contact. If you make that eye contact, your audience on the other side is more likely to follow along with this presentation as well. Tone, inflection, and breathing is super important when you're using audio and video, just to make sure that you are speaking in a clear manner. The tone helps the audience that's sitting at home or in their office listening to this presentation understand, like, if there's an inflection in your voice or your tone gets a little bit more serious, that they need to be paying attention to those cues to ensure that they're understanding the important message that you're trying to deliver as well. Now, the other side of the video portion of it is sometimes in our presentations, we show that was very Minnesotan of me to say, but we show a video, and a lot of the times people will just, go into PowerPoint, they'll do the insert video, and then you can insert a video link, directs you right to YouTube, and it should work, right? But if your internet's unstable or it's not reliable, and we all know the only time it's unreliable and not stable is when you're in the middle of an important presentation and something always goes wrong with the internet speed and connection. So my recommendation is to do a direct download of that video and then upload it to the PowerPoint itself. There's an option right there where you do insert video from file, and to save that video, if you're getting it from YouTube and whatnot, if you just Google how to do it, it's like 4 easy steps to get your video actually downloaded. So it doesn't require the internet to play your video. Your video has already been downloaded and it will just continuously play without internet even needing to be turned on during that portion of it. So, but it requires the internet to actually download it. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense to you. So that's just a little bit about getting audio and video set up for your presentation. Again, practice makes perfect, as we always say in this training world. You want to ensure that you're always practicing your audio and video. And a lot of the times what you can do is you can just go in, if you're using Zoom, you can go into your personal Zoom room and you can basically have a presentation with yourself, and you can share your screen, turn your camera on, make sure the sound does great. Because what I do is I'll record those practice sessions and then listen back to the practice session and make sure I need to adjust whatever I need to adjust in that moment. But my next fun one is lighting. So let's discuss a little bit about lighting. So lighting should actually be taken very seriously, because again, it helps create that buy-in from the audience. It also creates the engagement factors as well. As you can see on this first picture, this is a woman sitting in front of the window, but then when she turns and she sits in front of the window, she's getting that natural light, which is obviously a way better picture that you see right here. Would you want to be watching a presentation right now that somebody has this darkness, or would you want them lit up like they are right there? Like, it kind of makes sense. So an easy trick. You don't have to have a ring light. I just put on a ring light because to me, they're so cheap on Amazon right now. It's like $20 to order that same ring light that is in the second image. And then that way, if the room you're presenting in doesn't have the natural light, you can create some sort of this fake natural light just to elevate and level up your presentation as well. So make sure that but the trick to do it, if you don't want to order a light, if you don't have the option and you are in a room that has a window, is you want to turn and face the window. So Tara, this might be a great tip for the HQ. If you turned your desk this way and constantly have this natural light glowing on your face, you're going to have a better light. But that's just kind of a little pro tip, I think, because lighting sets you apart from the amateurs that are doing presentations. Because on that first image with the lady with the dark and the bright, the first one looks like it's her first presentation ever. The second one looks like she's a professional now. She knows what she's doing, and she's actually taking the extra time to set up a presentation for her audience so that the audience experience is at high level. So like I said, you can also get a ring light from Amazon. They're super cheap these days, and they're really great. They're just plug into your computer through a USB and you automatically have a bright light, which is great. And it's not really that distracting. The only time I'll say that it is distracting is when ring lights and you wear glasses. Like I wear glasses and I have the blue blocker in mine. So you can always see the ring light in the reflection of your glasses. And that is a little bit distracting. But if you actually position your ring light up so it's not shining in your face, but it's shining down. There's a 3-step approach for lighting. If you had a couple of them where you can position them to create like a lighting box, basically. But that's like super professional level. And but if you want to make that experience for your audience, that's a simple way of doing it as well. But ring lights definitely are super important. Yes. Okay, great. Sorry, I was just getting a little distracted by the comments. I think Jeff just put in there, ring lights make a huge improvement in consistent lighting versus clouds passing by windows. Yeah, 100% couldn't agree more with you. But yes, be careful of that glare. Use natural light when it's happening. If not, get a ring light and your lighting will be just a game changer. You'll level up your presentation. Another important factor that I wanted to talk about today is our learning styles. I think learning styles are a contributing factor to how to create the presentation. So let's not talk about delivering it right now. Let's talk about creating that virtual presentation, because in order to create a successful and proper presentation, you have to factor in the learning styles. And I think a lot of us that are on this call understand this kind of concept with creating different training programs, because you can't really just create a training program that is for auditory learning styles, because then other individuals that are visual learners or kinesthetic learners actually they're not learning the information. So learning styles, we have the 3 that I like to focus on. We have the auditory, the visual, and the kinesthetic. And with the auditory, these individuals love speeches, presentations, audiobooks or podcasts. They retain a lot of that information and that's an easier way for them to learn. Sometimes as well, like if you go back to the college days, being in a classroom where the teacher is presenting on information, that's what their learning style is for an auditory person. For a visual, they love reading research. They need that directions, kind of like you buy that shelf at IKEA and you have to go step by step. You definitely have to do those directions. They love that side of it. Pen and paper is a really great one as well for visual learners. They like to take the notes as they're seeing things happen so they can actually reflect back on it. And then they like to utilize the diagrams as well. For kinesthetic, it's hands-on approach, 100%. They like models and experiments with their hands-on approach. Now, I know the percents are laid out there on the bottom for you, but 30% of our population is auditory learners, 65% of our population is visual, and then that leaves 5% of our population as kinesthetic, the hands-on approach or the doing the visual or the learning styles. With the 5%, it's a super small population, right? And I think if you looked at these, a lot of people would be like, oh, I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn by doing. But to make the difference out of that, it's actually technically the higher one is the visual, because the kinesthetic people are the ones that like to tinker, to figure out how something works by getting their hands dirty and really figuring that out. The bigger population has to read directions or be taught or told and then go do it. So that's why the population percents are a little bit off on that one, just to make sense of it. All right, multitasking, stop it. I cannot reiterate this enough. I am totally guilty of doing this. There's probably multiple of you on this call right now that are multitasking, trying to get something done right now, answering a text, looking at your watch. Okay, work's reaching out, and you're the one supposed to be learning from this portion of it. It's the same when you're presenting. Don't even multitask. So what I do, airplane mode, Wi-Fi off on my phone. You want to make sure that you are not multitasking. Make sure there's 0 distractions happening. And some important reminders is these kind of icons will really attribute to it right here. So put your phone away. Don't even just like put your phone in your pocket, put your phone on your desk, like put it in the other room so you don't even have that temptation when you're trying to listen to a presentation, because I'm sure somebody on this call is probably scrolling TikTok right now, or looking up a Yeti microphone or ordering a ring light on Amazon, which those are great, but that can wait until after. So multitasking has to stop. If your emails are coming in, or at my job, we use Teams to communicate a lot of the time, during a presentation or when you're supposed to be paying attention, just close it out. Don't minimize it. Like actually quit those programs and close it out so that distraction isn't happening. Same with radios. Make sure those are turned off, obviously. A lot of these are going to seem elementary, but they are just simple factors that actually can help elevate the audience engagement as well. Make sure that you're not eating or have a snack. Nothing is worse than seeing somebody on a camera and eating nonstop. Like it drives me up a wall because now I'm distracted by that person chewing and I'm like, what are they eating? Now I'm hungry. I want to go to the fridge and get something. This kind of stuff happens all of the time. So just make sure you're not eating. Even if it's like, almonds and you're just popping, like don't do it, especially if you're on camera because it's distracting. Also windows. So obviously you want the natural light coming in, but if you're just listening to a presentation, I always like to just kind of shut the blinds a little bit so I'm not distracted by who's walking by. Oh, there's the Amazon delivery guy, things of those nature. And then, like I said earlier, closing down that email, that's probably the biggest takeaway is close your email. Don't minimize it. Actually shut it down during a presentation so you're not being distracted. Before I move on a little bit further, Tara, were there any questions that were coming through that we wanted to answer now?
Hold on one second. There's one question that says, if you use an internal mic, do you recommend maximum background suppression?
Yeah, so I would maximize your suppression if you have hard surfaces. If you have a background area that doesn't have the hard surfaces as crazy, you don't have to suppress it as much. But with Zoom, they do they have a setting for auto and then a manual. If you're hard surface room, I would do manual. If you're just a regular area that has some soft surfaces, just leave it as normal. But again, record yourself on Zoom and see how it sounds, because that is how the audience is going to be perceiving it for you.
And then the other questions were people multitasking and asking each other what the best Yeti microphone was.
I love it. I have a Yeti Blue, and it's I think they're like middle line microphone. I don't think you need to be spending anything more than like, I mean, I can't even remember how much it was. Like it might have been $100, but like anything higher than that is when you're getting into professional microphones for like voiceover recording or singing. So you don't really need those style of microphones, but any USB microphone will be great. They have like the Yeti Caster, the Yeti Blue. The mini ones, I think I've read that your internal is better than the Yeti Mini. So just a note of that. Okay, great. Well, I will go ahead and keep going. So let's talk about audience engagement. I think this is a huge takeaway as well. There's so many things that we can be doing. In front of you on the screen are the simple ones that I threw up there that you may be doing or you may be forgetting to do. So engage and prep attendees before the event. I think that's critical. If there's an agenda, if there's an outline, hey, when you come to this presentation, you should expect the following. So they have an idea of what they're coming into, because a lot of the times where people are disengaged, they're not genuinely even interested, but they feel like they have to attend, is when they don't know what they're coming into. There might just be the title and there's no agenda. There's no description of what this session actually is. So it's hard for them to be engaged walking in the door, walking into that meeting. So making sure that you prep the attendees prior, I think is really great. Also, if you say, hey, come to this meeting with these 3 questions in mind and have your answers ready, I think that's a great way too, because it gets them thinking before the event. Polls, I think, are actually a lot of fun. Now, managing the polls by yourself can be a little difficult, because nothing is worse than, okay, I'm going to launch a poll. Okay, go ahead and vote. Okay, let me go ahead and share you guys. Like, nobody wants to know what you're doing in that moment. Nobody wants to hear that you're about to share the results and taking them step by step. Like, they just want to see the results. So doing it by yourself can be a little bit difficult sometimes. You can create these polls in advance of a presentation and actually save them in Zoom is a feature that's available. So you have that to kind of prep before, but it's another great way for an audience engagement tool to really make sure that they're paying attention, that they're listening, and that they're staying on task by asking some of these questions. And I try to throw in some curveballs and ask really hard, difficult questions of like one little snippet of information that I was presenting versus just like, hey, give me your feedback on this. So that's why I think polls are great. You can make polls fun. You can make polls serious or informative, but all of it's obviously confidential from when they're sending in the information. So it's a great way to get real-time feedback on the information you're presenting about. Another thing, obviously music. I worked at Live Nation for a short period. Shout out to Robert Rodriguez. I saw you on the call today. Great to have you here. Starting music before a presentation and ending with music is something I've taken away from my time at Live Nation. I'm actually implementing over at Blaze. So anytime I hold a call, I will have a playlist going, and so people that join early, we always know that there's a couple of people that will join early. They have something to listen to and kind of sets the mood or the tone for the call. And then an outro with music is always fun too. And it's really not difficult to do these at all. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, but when you're sharing a screen in Zoom or Teams now, because it's a new feature Teams just added, you just, when you're sharing, you make sure you click share computer sound. And then I just open up Apple Music or Spotify and I play that music, turn it down a little bit so it's not so blaring on their side. And it's just a really cool way to enhance the beginning and the outro as well. Live Q&As are also a great idea to do when you are having it. You can set up where the live Q&A goes up through the whole presentation, so people can start asking questions now versus waiting till the end and they didn't write it down and then they forgot to ask, but it was super important to ask. So those are really critically important to do as well. Breakout rooms are fun. If you've been on any of the chart calls that they were having a little while ago, they would do some breakout rooms, and it's a great way for you to get thrown in a room with random people or different coworkers and work something out between, if it's like 3 or 4 of you in that room, and then you get pulled back into the main room. And it's just another really great enhanced feature. When you throw somebody out in a breakout room, when you're like, all right, we're going to go into a breakout room and everybody's going to discuss this, come back with these 3 things, it really requires the audience member to now, they have to be super engaged, be paying attention and understand what's going on, but you want them to have that buy-in as well. So I think putting some of the ownership on them throughout the presentation helps with that as well. Icebreakers, that's something I would probably do middle, beginning, and end of a presentation, is having an icebreaker, maybe something related to the material that you're actually presenting on that day and that topic. So that way it really customizes the presentation and it has like a personal note to it. So having that icebreaker available as well. So these couple are just some ideas, some tips that you can use to help keep the audience engaged. What I will say is, if you're going to pick any of these, or if you're going to run with all of them and you're going to do that, make sure that you feel and you're confident and you feel like you're a professional in your own manner to handle these. Like if you want to do polls, make sure you practice doing polls, of putting them up, then sharing the results, gathering the information, having these pre-planned. If you're going to have music out, you better test that music like 500 times before you do it, because there's nothing worse than when a song is playing and all of a sudden it just disappears and you don't know why. And so you're trying to click through it. People lose the buy-in when something is not executed properly. Now, is there going to be technical issues throughout the presentation sometimes? Yeah, it's just the unfortunate case of it. So knowing that in order for your audience to be engaged with the buy-in, they have to feel and trust the actual presenter in that moment. This was also called 15 expert tips that we were going to provide for you. So I wanted to throw up the 15. So if you want to go ahead and screenshot this, take a picture of this, I recommend it, because this is something I look at every time I'm about to go into a presentation that I'm leading. So craft and deliver key messages that move others. That is super important. How can you connect with the audience member? Because again, we have those 3 different learning styles, and we want to make sure that we're connecting and delivering that message with with the audience that is there. In doing so, you want to make that strong personal connection. You know, like it says right there, whether it's 10 or 10,000, like, is there 5 people or is there 50 people? Are you more nervous talking to a small group or more nervous talking to a large group? Whatever you feel like, you got to find your happy medium and be able to present and make those strong personal connections there. There's create a high quality audience experience. Keeping people involved is super beneficial. everything that I've been just talking about, preaching to the choir about virtual presentations, and I'm here with no light, no mic, all of those things. If you have those in play, you're going to get that better buy-in as well, because they know Braxton is somebody that presents with that same setup every time. They might look forward to it, they might not, I don't really know. But as soon as you do a presentation without that setup, they now think you're a fraud and they don't have that buy-in. So you really want to stay consistent with how you're delivering on your presentations. Project a very comfortable and strong leadership presence. If you are not projecting that, the buy-in's gone. Plain and simple. Have an outstanding camera presence and make great eye contact, even through virtual. That is like probably the hardest thing to do in virtual, is because I'm looking at my screen here and the camera's right there. If I don't keep looking up, people are going to be like, where's he looking? Why isn't he looking at us? So make sure that you're making that eye contact there. Work effectively with slides so they enhance your presentation. They don't get in the way. Okay, nothing is worse than when people go ahead and like make all of these like things flying in and auto timed and like zoom out and zoom in, and like it's cool and all, but like it actually takes away from your presentation. So make sure that that's not getting in the way. Sometimes a simple presentation where you actually throw everything up on the screen is great. Bullet points I think are great for presentation because it highlights what you're covering, and then you go obviously as the speaker into more detail with it, but it doesn't need to be all fancy and glamorous. Like people just want the content. Communicate confidently, clearly, and persuasively. Obviously, telling that great story is really important. Make each person listening feel the impact personally, that you are talking to them. Because if you can connect with them, then they have that buy-in, that relationship with you right then and there, and they're actually going to want to be focused and paying attention 100% of the time. Significantly raise their awareness, leave them truly enlightened. If you can take anything away from this today, please take away that I love doing things at Chart. I love sharing with people. Obviously, you can tell virtual presentations is something I'm comfortable with. I may not be the expert at it, but I'm comfortable with it. I'm comfortable to share with you how I do it. And because if anything, I always feel like the training teams always get left behind in the dust, especially when it comes to operations. So if we can just elevate and level up our game, I want to share that with you, because I think that's, if you could take anything away from it and add it to your presentations moving forward, I think you'll be enlightened by what I was able to share. Be compelling, even inspiring, keep your audience captivated and fully engaged. Super critically hard to do that, which I understand. So finding those different icebreakers, those polls, those live Q&As, hey, throw in the chat box what your favorite thing is, like asking those kind of questions is super, super key to making sure that they're staying fully engaged. Communicate at the correct speed and pause. That's like a professional polish thing. If you can communicate at the correct speed, you're not going too fast and then too slow, and then your inflection's getting high and then low, and your tone is just so mono, and you really need to find that happy medium. I always get feedback because I ask for it, especially in an in-person presentation. And we were recently on site in Dallas, and I felt like our presentation, shout out to my Blaze peeps, I love you, I thought it was just kind of like meh, and it was just like and it was so hard to focus. And then when it was my turn, as if you know me, I like go on stage and I'm like, hey, welcome, and I just get like super energetic because I want people to feel that and switch it. But the feedback was I was too energetic and it didn't actually match the tone of the room. Even though I was trying to raise them up a little bit, I went over the top. So it didn't work, right? It fell flat. But if you can get that kind of feedback from people and you ask for that feedback and then actually apply it to the next, it's the best way to grow, I think, personally. So again, gaining that tremendous support and buy-in, and then move your audience, take inspired actions to take the next steps. Taking the next step is the best part. So what I'm going to ask for your next steps right now is I would love to see in the chat box, what is your one takeaway from this presentation today? If it's buying a ring light, fine, that's great. I just would love to see what your takeaway from it is today. We'll be wrapping up here in the next couple of minutes. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and actually throw those into the chat box. I know, Tara, you've been monitoring that a little bit. Okay, cool. So they're starting to come in, which is great. Adding intro music to set the tone and energy. Love that. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm going to try music and polls. Hey, while we're on the music subject really quick, another one that I actually learned from a great friend on this call is when you're looking up a playlist, obviously the songs have to be like safe for work. And it's weird that I just said safe for work because that's what the playlist is called on Apple Music. I know for sure. If you go into the top and you type safe for work, they have playlists that are actually safe in the work environment and they're great songs. So make sure that you're doing that and not playing anything with like explicit language and moving forward on that because that is just never good. Okay, so a lot of people are saying I'm going to try music and polls. That's awesome. Soliciting Q&A throughout verse just at the end. Ashley, thank you for bringing that up because that is super important. I'm glad that's your takeaway because if you're asking questions, that means they have to pay attention. And if they don't pay attention, they're not going to be answering the questions. And if it's a smaller group, nothing is more embarrassing than not answering that question. Stop being distracted. So guilty and I need a mic. All right, I'll help you out with that. The ring light, adding music. Okay, adding polls, a few more icebreakers, recording presentations and watching it back. It's a great tip to do. It's something that taught me how to be better at actually giving presentations. Okay, great. Thank you guys for answering that question. Is there any questions that you have that you've thrown in the chat box? I don't think I've seen anything come through.
Actually, one of them says, can you explain how to play music through Zoom or Teams again?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you go to click the share button, like you're going to share your presentation, in that screen that pops up, and then you like click on PowerPoint to share your PowerPoint. In the bottom left-hand corner is a little button that says use computer sound. If you click that, it has to be clicked. If it's not clicked, it's not going to work. So you click that. So you have your PowerPoint and you click the button, you click share, and then that starts sharing your screen. Then when you press play on the music or any sound that comes out of your computer, now the audience can hear. So that's how I do it. And if you would love for me to ever just like set up a quick call with you and do like a one-on-one tutorial on how to do this, we can do a screen share and I can walk you through it really quickly. But once you do it the first time, it's super simple. Great question.
Another question was whether or not Zoom polls are easy to use. And I know that they are, but are there any pitfalls or things that you think people should be aware of?
The only pitfall I would say, they're super easy, user-friendly to actually manage, which is great. The only pitfall is if you don't know how to stop the poll, share results if you are sharing the results onto the next poll, it can be kind of cumbersome when you're trying to get through the minutia of that. And that's where like people start getting disengaged because it's taking you forever. So I'd be very mindful of that. But otherwise, I don't think there's any true pitfalls to it.
Okay, and I don't think everything else was just comments that people were sharing with each other. So no other questions.
Do you ever use a producer to help with polls? Great question. I'm actually glad you asked that. So if I am doing a work presentation at Blaze, we talk to our franchise community once a month on this big franchise communication collaboration call, and myself and Antonio run that. So Antonio is in charge of advancing the slides, and then I'm also in charge of the production side of it. So if we do polls, I'm in charge of it from that side. I'm also the mute police, so ensuring people stay on mute, and then also allowing people in, monitoring the chat. So there's usually two of us. So if you have that option to have somebody be your producer for your presentation, it will make your life so much easier. And all you have to do, they don't even have to be sitting in the room next to you. You just need to make them a co-host on your Zoom call. So you just go to the participants panel, click on their name and click make co-host. Now they have a lot more functionality with polling, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a great way to do that. And also, if you're ever confused about any of the stuff with Zoom, I actually learned a lot of my stuff by trying it, but also heading over to the Zoom website and watching some of their 15-second video tutorials on how to do certain things. It's really a great way to do it.
Another question was, do you have any examples of icebreakers for the beginning, middle, or end of a presentation?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the beginning one, let's say like our topic this week is going to be talking about an LTO pizza. My first icebreaker is, if you could name this pizza, what would the name be and why? Okay, so you're kind of getting to know them a little bit on why they picked that. Okay, so that's one question. In the middle, now that we've gone through this presentation, let's do another icebreaker. Now, if you could change any of the ingredients on this pizza, what would you change it to and why? And just having those where you get to hear a personal side of them, like, oh, I would add banana peppers because I think that's going to enhance the actual flavor profile of this, and peppers are my favorite, blah blah blah. So being able to have those icebreaker questions where it's still work related, but you're getting to know somebody on a personal level, I think is the best way to incorporate it. And then you can always just do a wrap at the end with another icebreaker. Like, okay, now that we talked about this LTO pizza that we're going to be launching, if you could create any pizza, what would it be and why would you name it the way that it is? And for example, our CRO always gives the example of, oh, I would make sure that mine had corn on it because I grew up in Nebraska and I would call it the corn-fed pizza. And so just like little things like that. That's how we do it occasionally, but there's so many different ways that you can do it. And I know even on our chart.org website, there's so many icebreakers in the trainer toolbox, I believe is where it lives. And there's some great icebreakers that are listed there that you can actually incorporate into a virtual session.
Okay, I think that might be it on our questions.
Okay, cool. Well, that is all I have today. So I really appreciate everybody's time. If you would like any of this information, please don't hesitate to just send me a note or an email. But more importantly, I hope you register for Chart 100 in Atlanta so I can see you in person and we can have a great time. But Tara, I'll let you wrap it up.
That's it. Thank you everyone for joining us. The webinar will be recorded on the website later today, and check our website because we have some upcoming webinars that are going to be posted just this week. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Braxton.
Thanks.